Avariel, Winged Elf. The Avariels are without a doubt the most reclusive and least numerous of the elven subraces on Faerun. Many scholars have long dismissed them as creatures of myth. In truth, small numbers of Avariels still dwell in Faerun, concealed in hidden enclaves and remote regions. The most striking feature of the Avariels is their soft, feathered wings. These wings have spans of anywhere from 12 to 16 feet, and are usually white, but may also be gray, brown, black, or speckled. Avariels take great pride in their wings and spend long hours grooming them. Their skin is pale, often porcelain white, with tinges of blue or faint silver. They have silver white or black hair, with other shades being rare but not unheard of. Their eyes are rather large and more expressive than those of other elves, and they tend to be brilliant shades of blue or green. A few Avariels have scintillating violet eyes as pure as amethysts. Avariels stand 5 feet 9 inches tall on average, with thin, graceful limbs and angular racial features. They are the most beautiful and striking of the elven races, although too often this beauty is marred by haughtiness and condescension toward their land-bound kin, whom they often pity. Avariels are even more delicate than other elves, and their movements are quick, calculated, and graceful. They prefer to wear loose-fitting, diaphanous clothing that catches the wind in flight, and ripples and weaves in the air. Armor is almost never worn, because it tends to weigh the Avariels down and hinder their graceful motion. Avariels cannot fly while wearing heavy armor. History. Along with the Green Elves and Lithari, the Avariels are one of the 3 oldest elven races. Today, though, they are all but extinct, forced into the far corners of the world ages ago by the ancient dragons and hunted mercilessly by evil folk. The Avariels, upon first migrating to Faerun millennia ago, found the world to be a vast, beautiful place. Unfortunately, vicious dragons ruled the skies above ancient Faerun. The newly arrived Avariels were nearly wiped out by the dragons before the first flowering. The last of their race flew eastward long before the First Crown War, wandering the skies only when they had to, hiding on the ground like vermin, and living terrible, dirty existence as nomads and scavengers. The last redoubt of the Avariels today is known as the Eyrie of the Snow Eagles, a crystal citadel hidden atop one of the most remote peaks in the ice-rimmed mountains of distant Saussel. The exact location of the Eyrie of the Snow Eagles is one of the Avariels' most closely guarded secrets. The Eyrie itself resembles a tremendous castle or tower of glass, built on a sheared-off mountaintop. A flight of Avariel nomads discovered it abandoned ages ago. The Avariels believe that the original mountaintop was taken by a Netherese archmage who wished to use it to build a floating city. The present-day Eyrie is a sight to behold. The walls of the glass Eyrie are magically hardened to the strength of steel. Inside, the Eyrie of the Snow Eagles supports a tropical climate, complete with jungles of plants and trees long extinct elsewhere in Faerun. For 2 centuries, this last lair of the Avariels has been led by winged Father Aquilon Greatspan. The Avariels fly there still, fishing in the freezing waters of the Great Ice Sea and hunting the icy reaches of the Great Glacier. Outlook. Avariels came dangerously close to extinction long ago, and it has taken them thousands of years to recover to the point where they don't have to worry about the fate of their race. Only recently have they begun to expand back into the world, sending explorers, diplomats, and merchants south into Faerun. Small, scattered bands of Avariels still exist in the heartlands of Faerun, but these groups rarely number more than a dozen, and usually avoid civilized areas. Avariels are free spirits who would like nothing better than to simply soar on the currents high above the ground, taking in the views Faerun has to offer. They possess an irrepressible zest for life. Even in the darkest, most desperate situation, an Avariel remains cheerful. Unfortunately, while friendly to those they consider their equals, they also tend to be condescending, and even downright rude to land-bound races. The Avariels are usually unaware of this. It's just their natural reaction to treat land-bound races as lesser creatures. Given time and enough exposure to other cultures, Avariels can overcome their natural bias. Avariel Society. The Avariels have a unique model for their societies, separating into two groups when they congregate in large numbers: a warlike society of fighters and soldiers, and a peaceful society of thinkers and religious scholars. These two subcultures, as opposed as their separate philosophies may be, work together to forge a powerful symbiotic relationship. Warlike Avariels have a complex code of honor that they use to guide and temper their militaristic activities and training. These Avariels spend their lives defending their kin. Their lives are geared toward war and power, and they answer to their war chiefs, who share responsibility for ruling the society with the religious leaders of the peaceful Avariels. The martial Avariels are proud and hardy, and they form eternal friendships with those who earn their respect and trust. In combat, warlike Avariels have little pity or remorse about cutting down their enemies. The concept of surrendering is highly dishonorable to these Avariels, both for themselves and for their enemies. Once lethal combat begins, few Avariels break off until they or their enemies are dead. Drawing blood from an enemy is nothing less than a promise to honor the enemy with one's skills in combat, and not humiliate them by leaving them alive to dwell on an embarrassing defeat. The act of slaying an enemy is viewed simply as delivering on that promise. Warlike Avariels prefer to use ranged weapons, and they aren't above using wings to gain an advantage over land-bound enemies. This is supported by their code, which allows them to cut down an enemy from an unassailable distance in the skies above. Those who cannot defend themselves against an attack from the skies should know better than to make an enemy of a clearly superior foe. The peaceful Avariels, unlike their warlike kin, focus mainly on arts and the intellectual aspects of life. When faced with conflict, a peaceful Avariel relies on their brains and diplomatic abilities, and often on their magic power. Peaceful Avariels are artists, philosophers, and researchers who spend their lives studying the world and its history and creating works of art simply for the sheer joy of creation. The peaceful Avariels are also responsible for providing their society with food, entertainment, and education. Many peaceful Avariels are also very religious and spend much of their time contemplating the ways of their deity, Erdryfenia. Despite their divergent personalities, these two subcultures interact surprisingly well. Young Avariels typically spend time immersed in each subculture, learning from both warriors and priests. These exchanges, which often last for a decade or longer, allow Avariels raised in one subculture to learn how the other subculture lives. Language and literacy. All Avariels can speak Elven and Common, and each learns an additional language based on his or her native region. Most winged elves are intelligent enough to pick up at least one additional language. This additional language is usually Orin, so the Avariels can speak with allied creatures of the air such as the giant eagles they adore. Additional languages often learned by Avariels include Goblin, Orc, Sylvan, and the predominant human language of their home region. Avariels also often learn the Draconic and Giant languages, so that they can converse with their hated enemies if the need arises. All Avariels are literate, except for Avariel barbarians, assuming they exist. Abilities and racial features. +4 dexterity, -2 constitution, +2 intelligence, +2 wisdom. Avariels have hollow bones and, as a result, are more fragile than humans. At the same time, they are gifted with a keen intuition and intellect, and an almost otherworldly grace. Keen sight. Avariels gain a +4 racial bonus on all spot checks. This replaces the standard +2 racial bonus that most elves gain. Avariels gain a +4 racial bonus on jump checks. They are strong for their weight. Proficient with either rapier or longsword, proficient with lasso and bolus. This replaces the standard elven weapon proficiency with longswords or rapiers and proficiency with shortbow, longbow, composite longbow, and composite shortbow. Flight. Avariels have a flying speed of 50 feet with average maneuverability, as long as they do not carry more than a medium load, are not wearing heavy armor, and are not fatigued or exhausted. Avariel wings have a span of 12 feet on average. They cannot fly in an area that does not allow them to fully extend their wings. An Avariel may make a dive attack. A dive attack works just like a charge, but the Avariel must descend a minimum of 30 feet and attack with a piercing weapon. If they hit, they deal double damage. An Avariel can use the run action while flying, provided they fly in a straight line. Medium. As medium creatures, elves have no special bonuses or penalties to their size. Elf base land speed is 30 feet. Immunity to magic sleep effects, and a +2 racial saving throw bonus against enchantment spells or effects. Low light vision. An elf can see twice as far as a human in starlight, moonlight, torchlight, and similar conditions of poor illumination. They retain the ability to distinguish color and detail under these conditions. +2 racial bonus on listen and search checks. An elf who passes within 5 feet of a secret or concealed door is entitled to a search check to notice it as if they were actively looking for it. An elf's senses are so keen that they practically have a sixth sense about hidden portals. Avariel males range in height from 5 foot to 6 feet 4 inches, and weigh from 70 pounds to 166 pounds. Avariel females range in height from 4 feet 8 inches to 6 feet 2 inches, and weigh from 65 pounds to 161 pounds. Avariels age more quickly than most elves and reach adulthood at 40 years, and can reach a maximum age of about 500 years. Level adjustment, +3. Avariels are more powerful and gain levels more slowly than most of the other common races of Faerun.